It may please you or disappoint you to learn that Goosebumps actually isn't very scary. There are a lot of monsters in the film, and these are all the creations of R.L. Stine. And if you're already familiar with them, or if your child's already familiar with these characters, then there probably won't be too many surprises here for them. But it's more, I mean, even though there is violence in the film, I guess, this is the thing to be aware of. If your child has any particular fears, like clowns, for example, or those kind of things, and there's a full list of the monsters on the website, so you can see what kind of characters appear, then maybe, you might want to prepare them for what they're going to see. But the way the film kind of works is that many of the monsters and some of the more popular ones are introduced, they have a scene, and then it moves on. So it's very episodic that way. You get to meet a lot of R.L. Stine's characters, but you don't really get to spend a whole lot of time with them. The creatures you probably spend the most amount of time with are the abominable, I knew I was going to get that wrong, abominable snowman, the man-eating plants, the blob, so the aliens with the freeze ray guns, and the vampire poodle makes an appearance, as well as Slappy, the ventriloquist mannequin. So these are the characters that you'll probably see on screen the most. There is a little bit of violence in the film, and the characters are chased by these characters. The other main character that you do see is the werewolf or the wereman, and that's probably a fairly menacing scene because he chases down the characters. It's kind of almost comic and slapstick, a lot of the horror in it. So as I said, it's not very scary, and there's really no tension in the film. But these are the ones that make the main appearances. Some of the characters, do meet kind of, I guess, fairly grisly ends, some of the monsters. So some particular characters are put into an oven and melted. You do see one little kind of, the gnomes make an appearance, and you see them break apart when they're hit with objects, and you see one of them headless. These little guys also have a habit of throwing knives, so there's a little bit of aggression there. You see characters with their legs caught in bear traps, that kind of thing. People get shot with freeze ray guns and they're frozen. You don't really ever find out what happens to them, so you assume that they're unfrozen by the time the film ends. When these characters are getting pursued, that's probably the highest level of tension, if any, in the film. And some of the other ends that the monsters meet, like one of them is hit by a car. Some of the giant insects fly into objects, and you see the insect goo and the splatter appear as a result of that. You don't really see any other blood through the film. There is one male character, who has a tiny little bit of blood on his forehead, and another character kind of wipes it away. But it's shot, a long way enough that you don't really see any detail. You don't know how it actually occurred, and it's just a tiny little spot of blood, really. So there isn't any emphasis there on any blood or gore. If I was going to talk about blood or gore, what I probably could describe is because the creatures arrive out of the page, out of the books, they tend to have a kind of an inky goo appearance when they disappear again. So if any of them if they don't always die, they tend to kind of evaporate, and they evaporate into this kind of inky goo mess. So rather than, you don't see dead bodies or anything like that. So that's kind of the violence. I mean, there is one character who's plucked out of a crowd and taken away, and you're not really sure if he's eaten, but then later on you see him with a neck brace. But yeah, as I said, you don't see any kind of really nasty violence. I mean, even though characters do get kicked and chased and I think bitten and things like that, it's toned down for the younger audience. There isn't any nudity or sex in the film. There's a little bit of kissing between teenagers, and there's the development of a romance between two characters. There is no alcohol at all during the film, but there is one drug reference. Two adults look at a teenager and they both say, "Oh, that kid's on drugs." But that's it. And again, there's no offensive language or profanity in the film. I think the word "but" is used once, and there's a little bit of name calling. The only thing I would mention is that there is a wordplay joke on the word pedophile. The actual word pedophile isn't used, but you'll get the reference. It's supposed to be a joke. So I think that pretty much kind of, covers what the film is about and who it relates to. If your child or you have read the books, then you'll be able to relate to this film a lot better, I think. My children and myself, we hadn't actually read the books, even though we have them sitting in a box set upstairs. And so watching this film was a new introduction for my family to these characters, and none of them my kids found particularly scary or upsetting. The only one that kind of has bothered one of my kids was Slappy, the ventriloquist mannequin. And my daughter said it's his eyes. His eyes creeped her out a little bit, and that stayed with her a little bit since seeing the film. But other than that, the kids just watched the film and forgot about it. There hasn't been any nightmares or anything like that since. Goosebumps is directed by Rob Letterman and stars Jack Black, and look for a really lovely cameo towards the end of the film between Jack Black and author R.L. Stine. The film also stars Dylan Minnette and Odeya Rush. If you want to have a look more closely at the content of the film, have a look at my content breakdown on the website, which is cinemum.net.